Hello and welcome back to another episode of Transport Fever 2. In this video, we're going to finish detailing up our new distribution center, and if we have time at the end, take a look around the map and make some minor adjustments where needed. So at the end of the last video, we ended off with this basic layout for our distribution center. I think I want to start out by setting up all of our lines, and then we'll get into detailing. So to start this off, we'll have to pick a train, and then once we have the train, we can set up our truck lines. So the first thing we'll have to do for our train is upgrade all this to electric track. I'm not exactly sure the train we're going to use, but I'd rather be prepared if we do end up going with an electric engine, just so we don't have to come back through and make a ton of changes and adjustments after we try to replace or buy the new train. Alright, so now all this track is electrified, we're going to need to set up our train. And actually, before we do that, I think we're going to connect these two tracks to this line that shoots off this way, just so that our train's heading out to San Jose and Downey, they have their own set of platforms, since especially these trains will be pretty big. They'll probably be pretty close to how our cargo hub to Albuquerque and Winston-Salem train is. So these will be pretty large trains. We'll want to make sure that they have pretty much a whole platform for themselves to load up on. So we'll just come in here and we'll extend these tracks straight out. We'll keep this level. So now we have that done, we can curve this around, and it might curve around pretty aggressively. Although I am okay with that since it is a pretty steep corner right here as we come up to the station, so it'll be slowing down anyway. But now that we have it connected up just like this, let's find a good spot to add our crossover point. I think that'll be right here before the tunnel. Alright, so we ended up getting in just past the tunnel, but now we need to make sure, so these tracks cannot attach to our train depot here, so I think it might just be as simple as bringing this across and over like so. So now that's connected, and we can just turn this into a double slip switch just in case if the trains are coming from different ways, and that should connect up pretty well to pretty much all of the tracks on this side now. So now that we've done that, we can build our train and figure out what we want to do for that. Alright, so I think this is the balance that we'll go with in terms of our cars. And then as we come up to our engine, that is this China Railways HXD 3B. This one has a lot of power and a lot of tractive effort, so hopefully it'll be able to handle this no problem. The only worry I have with it is its really high running cost, so that is something we'll have to keep an eye on. I suppose if this doesn't work out, we can switch to one of these other electric engines that are a little bit cheaper. Alright, so I think we'll get 3 of these trains, and those will then run from here all the way over to our new distribution center. And something didn't like that, so let's figure out what that was. So over here in the cargo hub, we want it coming from platform 4, 3 or 4 probably, and it still doesn't recognize that one. Alright, so we were able to get this to end up working. We just had to add some waypoints here in the middle, and that should be running now. I think if we press play, hopefully we'll see our train start to come out here. And yes, we do. So we see this train coming out of here, and I suppose as things slowly get on, we'll see the other trains start to come out from this way as well. So here's that new train coming across the bridge just outside of the cargo hub, and to get an idea of just how long this is, it is almost long enough to cover almost 3/4 of the bridge, I'd say. So I'm pretty happy with a train like this, and hopefully it works out pretty well by itself. And then moving back over here, let's set up our truck stops and truck lines in each area, and we will go from there then. So starting here in San Jose, let's take a look at where some of our stops need to go. So it looks like fuel is the major resource in this area, and I think some of it could be supplied by this fuel line that we have, but we might need some additional support from the distribution center in areas such as up here. So taking a look at all of this, I think we can cover pretty much all the tools with a stop right about here. And that was a bus stop, not a truck stop, so let's get a truck stop right about here. And then again, as for our fuel line, I think that will go right about here. And then in this area, I think we'll cover machines and construction materials with this stop, and then food and goods with this stop here. So now if we count this up correctly, that's about 4 lines that we'll need to set up, which means over here we might want to delete this and turn it into two platform station buildings. So let's get this set up real quick. So now we got this built. We have 2 here and then 2 here, and if we click this, it should still be connected to everything, and that I'm pretty okay with. And then I'm just going to assume that it's going to be the same thing in Downey, so we will flip this around and do the same changes here. So now with this, we should be able to start setting up our lines to San Jose. Alright, so now having our road depot inside of our main warehouse, we can begin to get some vehicles going. However, before we do that, I think we need to make this crossover just a bit farther away for our trains to work. So we will do that like so. And then once this train leaves, I think we'll actually extend our platforms just a little bit farther so it covers more of the train. Because if we take a look, maybe when we start it up again, we can see our loading and unloading speed. Or actually, I don't know if that applies to unloading, but to fit the train a little bit better, we'll make it slightly longer. That way, the train looks a little more natural and it's not twice as long as our station. Alright, so now that this has been extended, we can get back to what we were doing and setting up our truck lines. So first we'll get a couple of truck lines to run from here to the fuel drop-off location. And then next I think we'll cover our construction materials and machines with a flatbed truck. I think we'll go with these trucks here. So we'll get those going from the other platform at that station and come to this stop. So then next we'll get a couple of these trucks for food and goods. And then lastly, we'll get a set of trucks for tools. So now those are going to start to spread out and they'll start to request resources from the cargo hub. So it'll be a while before we see any of our trains picking any of that up. Alright, so now let's get our lines set up into Downey. And I think what we're going to do over here is going to be a little bit different because we already have our direct connection from the construction materials plant coming in over here. So I think we'll leave this as a construction material drop-off, and we'll just update where we're delivering those construction materials. Or actually, after looking at this for a little bit, I think we can have our trucks from here continue to have that small demand for construction materials, and we can have it fill that out in this area. So we'll just connect these streets, and I think we might be able to get a really good connection just on this road. So that's where these trucks are going to end up going to instead. We'll bring those over to here, and then from the distribution center, that will help cover everything up here. And so Downey has really turned into a mess and mix of resources, so trying to cover everything is going to be a little bit tricky, as it seems we might be able to get all the machines, food, and tools in one line, but I think we're going to need multiple lines to cover all the construction materials and goods up here. And so I think that's what we'll do. We'll just slide that truck station over just a tiny bit more to cover maybe an extra building or two. This stop will cover food, tools, and machines, and then we'll start setting up things everywhere else for construction materials and goods. So then what I'm thinking to cover all of this is we'll have one stop probably around here, and this will be strictly for goods. We'll have one stop down here for goods and construction materials. I think we'll get another one up here to cover more mix of goods and construction materials, and then one more somewhere in this area. And I suppose it'll have to be probably on this road, will also be a mix. So this isn't really an ideal setup. It's a really tricky situation here with this city, but I think we'll be okay to cover all of that. Just to help out a little bit, I think we might bring this street over so that we're not overloading this sort of main road that comes through the city. So anyway, with most of this covered, we actually might change this street and bring it over to here. And then we might actually even be able to get a better spot for this truck stop by then putting it on this street. So now we can come over here and get all of our trucks set up for that. We will start out again with some fuel trucks, and we really don't need a lot as there's not too much fuel being requested. That will share, I believe it's this truck stop. The next line that we're going to cover is going to be a little bit bigger, and this is going to be the tools, food, and machines line. And then from here on, it's pretty much just goods and construction materials. So we'll get 8 on this line that's reserved pretty much solely for goods. And those will go from here to this station. And then the last 3 lines here will be a little bit smaller, but they'll all be sharing the same platform. And those are for our shared construction materials and goods drop-offs. Alright, and so now we have our huge fleet of trucks slowly getting distributed through here. Hopefully they'll make their way through all this once things start to open up, but we'll make sure everything's on the right platforms in these. And then we should be seeing our trains moving some resources. So coming into our cargo hub here and to our San Jose Downey line, we do have a few resources slowly piling up, waiting to be moved at this location. So now we're going to come through and do all this detailing to this area, and hopefully once we're done with that, we'll start to see resources finally flowing into these cities. And so I think we'll start very generally by fencing off a lot of this area. So we'll start right here along the road. We'll come out a good distance, probably to about here. And then this is going to be the tricky part. We're going to want to make sure we get nice right angles while doing this. And we pretty much just have to do it by trusting from a distance. So I think right about here gives us a pretty good angle, and then we'll return this back to the road, and then across like so, and we'll have it just end right here at this wall. And so I like that on this side. I think we'll try to do the same thing on the other side as well. Alright, so now we have our two fenced in areas over here and over here. We'll get pretty much this whole thing painted in with asphalt, and then from there we can add a bunch of our smaller details. Alright, so now we have the bulk of the terrain painting done. You can pretty much see the areas that we're going to have paved over and detailed. I think here we'll add some trees. We have this nice road turnaround because it seems like a nice way to sort of cap off the two roads we had coming out this direction. And then these areas will pretty much just be filled with containers and storage. Over here will be delivery, loading, drop-off stuff. And then we might get a tiny parking lot back in this corner here. Alright, so here's one side detailed up, and I'm pretty happy with how this looks. We'll pretty much mirror it onto this side in terms of the logic. It won't be exactly mirrored. We'll change a few things up, but we'll mirror that. We'll detail this area, and that should be it for all of this. Alright, so that is this area pretty much all detailed up. We have both sides of the of the distribution center, detailed. Let's get some small details in here with just a couple of trucks waiting around. I don't think this area needs too much of that, and then we'll get a few parking spaces back here along this side. Alright, and so I think that's going to be this area pretty much fully detailed up. I really like how this came out. It looks like a nice busy area, especially with all these trucks coming into the different truck stations, and especially when we get a train coming into here, which we'll have right now, which we can then see how many resources it's carrying. So it's carrying a few. I think maybe there's still demand building up. Of course, we'll have to come back and adjust the rates for all these lines and make sure that the resources are coming in that we need to, but I think this is a very nice location on our map. We can also see, since this train did just drop off a load, and it wasn't even completely full, it looks like it almost doubled the amount of expenses it has, so once this is fully running at its maximum efficiency, money will not be an issue on this line. So we'll just close this out by smoothing the flat edges we have from when we set up this area. We'll add back in some trees, some variation to the terrain, and then I think we'll leave that off there. Alright, so this is going to be where we leave this video off. There are a few things that I want to do really quick before we end this, just taking note of some things. We had a really bad traffic jam over in this area between Winston-Salem and Albuquerque yet again, but we made a few road connections I went through off camera. So we connected a road here, so this allows people coming down towards the river to take this road instead of everyone being forced onto this single 4-lane road to get into the city. We also made some connections here, coming up to this portion on top of the hill. I'm not too sure how beneficial that is. If we take a look at our destinations layer, you can see not too many people are using it. There's a good portion coming on this road and then turning. So it seems like we're able to split the demand amongst those roads a little more evenly. But this is definitely an issue that's going to continue to pop up, and we will need to further evaluate it later on. And then let's just take a look at the cities real quick and see that they certainly are starting to receive their resources, and hopefully these numbers will continue to rise as we monitor the cargo hub and everything going on with that. Same thing in Downey, they're starting to receive their resources. Looks like we have a little bit of a traffic jam here, so we will need to maybe come up with a solution for that, or maybe it's just the trucks were all bunched together and they just need to space out. But I think this also shows a lot of promise. So anyway, with that, that'll be all that we do for this episode. So if you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe. If you have any suggestions or feedback, leave a comment below. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.